I've started 3 companies. Currently, I'm a co-founder and CEO at a company called Etelä-Helsingin, where we teach skilled immigrants software development, so coding, and then connect them with jobs. So last year, 60 people started in our training. This year, over 100 people will start in our training, and 80% of the graduates end up in jobs as software developers. So Integrify is in many ways the reason why I'm now running. I've been doing Integrify for the last 3 years, and it's a solution for 2 very current societal challenges: the integration of immigrants and the lack of software developers, not only in Finland but also Europe-wide. So, been talking to a lot of politicians, ministers, public sector leaders, etc., in the past 3 years. Have seen myself how integration is failing in many ways. We have huge problems with our national economy, and etc. And these are the reasons that have sparked my interest yet again into politics, and that's the reason I'm running today. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Hussein. I am originally from Somalia. I've been in Finland since 1994. I've been a father for about 13 years now, so waking up on Sundays morning at 7 o'clock is not a big deal for me. I do wake up. I wake up every day actually of my life. I don't know for how long this is going to continue. I can't wait to get them out of my home so I can sleep a little bit more. Like I said, I've been here since 1994. I came from a war-torn country. There wasn't anything called integration in the 1990s in Finland. We were sent to school, we learned the languages, then we were given the possibilities to study, to go to work, and it was really hard. I remember applying for jobs, cleaning jobs, where I was asked, do you have a Finnish passport? Have you been to the army? Do you speak Swedish? Like really technical questions which were crazy. But I can see that all has changed. To me, integration has gone from a better place to a worse place at the moment. And things are not going well for most of the immigrants in this country. I lead Finland's biggest multicultural organization called Monihei. It has over 130 different organizations from over 60 different countries, and manage, or actually be a chairman of an organization that runs almost 700,000 euros a year. Most of this money is used for integration and trying to find jobs for immigrant people living in this country. Why am I in politics? Well, I have felt Finland as an unjust country, and equality is mentioned in everywhere, here and there, but it really doesn't work. And there's a lot of people who don't feel that, and for that and so many other reasons, I think that I have to step up, and because the law gives me the possibilities to step up and do something about it, that's why I stepped up. And I've been in politics for about 15 years now. I'm a city councillor. I also sit with Fatim in the kasvatus- ja koulutuslautakunta. You can change that into English. I don't remember how it goes.
Education board, basically the one that manages all the education.
Education sector, yeah. With a budget of 1.3 billion euros, that's where me and Fatu are sitting at the moment, and try to do what we can for all the immigrant children backgrounds and all that. But I'm running for the parliament, and for me this is the do or die, because after this I decide what do I want to do. Thank you.
Ei ole hyvin tiettyä rajaa.
Hello. Yep. Hello everyone. Thanks for coming. It's really nice to see you today on Sunday morning. My name is Alexander Kliucharev-Foy. I'm originally from 2 countries, from Russia and from Azerbaijan. I'm a chairman in a couple of organizations who are working with integrating foreigners in Finland and integrating Finland in the new reality where we live in the new society where everyone has a right to be included. I'm in politics since I'm a teenager since I'm 15. It was also one of the reasons why I had to flee from my home country, where you are enough active in politics and it doesn't match with expectations of regime, then you have to flee at some point. I represent a Finnish-Swedish party. It's a party of minority, but nowadays we are talking that we are a party of minorities, and where everyone is welcome, and we want to work hard with these questions of human rights as well. While I'm running in parliament, I'm a social worker by education, and I work with society quite much, and have been working all my life. I think one of the biggest issues that the next government should tackle is make the reform of social and healthcare system that previous government has failed. And as a social worker, I think that I can be also quite good in and put my input there with reforming that, where client is in focus and not the business interests. Thank you.
Thank you. And normally, Ajak Majak from the Left Alliance Party, Vasemmistoliitto, may join us during this discussion. Okay.
Yes. So just a reminder that if you're eligible to vote, since this is called the New Finns, then you might have received a letter by the post, so you can sort of, depending on which kunta you're in, so just, look at that, and then please remember to vote, because it's very important to vote. So just remember that if you're eligible and you've received the letter, then you can vote. Yeah. And if you haven't, then I'm guessing there are some rules as to when you receive it. But if you have, remember to cast your vote. So we're going to dive into our...
Sorry. Who's got the slip?
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Great. So, yeah, so that's good. Yeah, so if we've got the slip, then we're voting. Great. Thank you for that, Daniel. So we'll dive into our questions. So we've got some questions that we'll throw to the panelists, and we ask that since it's a Sunday and it's it's a weekend, we'll have 2 to 3 minutes, maximum 3 minutes, and Zoltan will be showing the time. So if it's 3 minutes, we'll kindly ask you to, and then we'll have a Q&A so that the audience would have a chance to also grill the panelists as well. All right, so
I will ask you to look behind you. There's an image. So it's an interactive light installation called Lines. It's made by 2 Finnish artists, Pekka Niityvirta and Timo Aho. And so they constructed horizontal LED arrays above low-lying areas and bridges that will be submerged if the Earth temperature continue to rise. And actually the line that you see is corresponding to the high water locations on the sites of endangered structures. So Kliucharev-Foy, to discuss now about climate change, we have one question for you. Should Finland be on the forefront when it comes to climate change policies? What are your party's views on concrete environmental actions to tackle climate change?
Shall I start? Well, hi, I'm from the Greens, so of course this is the most important topic at the moment. We know that after the IPCC report, we know that there's 10 years time to limit the warming of planet to 1.5 Celsius, and if this is not done in the next 10 years, it is too late. And I think that's the main point why we're also sitting here. We have 10 years, and that means that we have to stop using fossil fuels. And we have to change the Finnish taxation system so that we do not support, so that we don't have state aids that are basically supporting companies that pollute, and also that are mostly that do not do what they're supposed to do. Most of them are completely useless, so we should cut them. And we should change our taxation system so that we taxate things that pollute, and things that do not pollute are more friendly to your wallet, because I really can't blame blame anyone who goes to on a Thursday night to Aleppo or any other store and buys a bunch of meat, buys meat there and goes home and cooks it fast because it's cheap and it's available in an easy way. It means that we have to make the environmentally friendly option to be the the cheapest one and the one that actually good and easy to take. That means that we have to change taxation, and of course we have to be the forerunners, and we have to be ambitious. Because I know that some people say, oh, we're only 5 million people, we can't do anything, but we're 5 million really, really rich people. And if you count the carbon footprint of Finnish people throughout our history, it is quite big. We have a responsibility and we need to do it. And also mean that in the European Union, we need to take a bigger role and demand more. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I think that we all political parties now agree, almost all the political parties agree that this problem with climate change and global warming, something should be done about it. We are being realistic in different ways. There's my party's vision, and then there's also, of course, a little bit of myself. My party's vision differs a little bit from the Greens. In the Greens, it's 10 years from now. For us, it's like 15 years from now. Like, we should do as much as possible and be realistic about it. I do second what my colleague from the Greens just said, but there are 2 points I want to raise. One point, the finger pointing doesn't ever work. There are people at the moment in the world that can't get their basic lives, and to talk to that person about climate change is like talking to a child about climate change. First, I think what we need to tackle as people living in this globe is how to get hunger out of from the world, get people the basic needs that they need, and from that point then educate people and try to make them understand why is it important that we don't pollute this, that we have only one world. People talk about, here in Finland we use the word the third world, or kehitysmaat, this developing countries. When you talk about the third world, it sounds like it's in a different planet. Like there's one planet over there and then we living in this planet. And in that way, we kind of try to show that there are those ones who are doing more, while actually it's we who are doing more here. We use 140 liters of water every day. 140 liters of water every day, basically. While we have on the other part of the world people dying right now of thirst and hunger in so many different ways. So I think that to be realistic, if we want to change or to challenge climate change, we need to think globally, and we need to make sure that this is an issue that is done not only here in Finland but everywhere else. In Finland, what needs to be done is that we need to get rid of the idea that we're only 5 million, we cannot do a lot. There's a lot of people, whenever we go to the discussions of climate change, there are those ones talking about, well, you have China, you have India, you have 1 billion people who are polluting and doing this and that Finland or a Finnish person cannot change a lot. And that is, I think, it's bogus, it's wrong, and it's a very immature way and irresponsible way of thinking. So we need to get rid of that here in Finland. We are already doing a lot in Finland. We can do more. But I think that if I will take one thing from what we're doing in Finland, is that the know-how and the education system that we have in this country, the understanding of this problem, the complexity of it, I think we should distribute it to the rest of the world. I think we should take it to the rest of the world and make sure that that in those other places where plastic is used more, does that mean I stop, or does it mean I have 5 seconds?
Yeah, that means you have to round up.
Okay, because you didn't say that. What do I do with that?
We are counting
I think I'm making one of the best points at the moment, so you can't stop me right now, because
you have to round up so we can.
I don't talk a lot about this, but anyway, I'll wrap up by saying that it's not the finger pointing that will not work. Telling people you can't do that, you can't do this is not, but to educate people and empower them. That's the way to go forward. Thank you.
Yeah, the climate change question is, for me, it's nowadays, it's especially when we speak about the next coming parliament election, yeah, it's a bit tricky that it's like in the corner, yeah, that it's like the main question, it's the main choice that we have to do. I totally agree, and it's, according to my opinion, it's collective responsibility for the climate change. Yeah, and it's not only Finland which is responsible for climate change. So it should be a wide cooperation between countries. I agree with Hussein with education. That's what Finland could be really good in, to create new and more educational programs which make people learn about how do we save the climate in other countries. Because as I see, Finland is quite good in environmental questions. Yeah, we are really do care about forest. We are really do care about animals. We are really do care about all other things in which we are surrounded, and to spread this knowledge. This, I think, the goal of Finland. Then should we have the separate question about the ban of benzene and diesel or not?
That would be later follow-up questions, so we have that especially then for Husu and Hudson. But and one for the others as well. But if you want to touch lightly on that, why not, please?
Yeah, because you talked a bit in the question as well about that. To ban something, yeah, it's the easiest thing you can do. Yeah, you don't have to be smart to ban something. That's important. But when you ban something, you have to be sure that you exchange, that you have alternatives for people to exchange. Yeah, infrastructure in Finland is not ready for electric cars. That's true. You can find enough charging. You can find the price of electric cars is too high still, and changing of accumulated accu is 20,000. Yeah, it's like to buy a new car. So in this case, I wouldn't be in a rush with banning that. I would first see on Sweden, which just confirmed that they will be, they are planned to be diesel and benzene free by 2030. Yeah, and we can take their experience. They have already now in Stockholm almost all the taxi cars as electric cars. That's a good point that Finland. So bringing first the best experience of our neighbor countries, which are some steps forward. Yeah, and I think the ban of diesel and benzene, for me it's a question for next government, not for this coming.
All right, thank you. So if Daniel and then Ayak, so ladies and gentlemen, Ajak, right, is with the Left Alliance, so she's joined. So if we could hear from you on this topic.
Yeah, a lot has been already said on the topic, and in many things it's very easy to agree. One thing that we see lacking in this conversation, in my opinion, in our party's opinion, a bit is concrete models to how to go forward. One thing that we've been talking about, that was previously mentioned, was the building of the infrastructure for electrical vehicles. And this is a very big of a chicken and egg problem right now, since people are not buying EVs because we don't have the charging stations, and we're not doing the charging stations because there's not enough EVs. So it's one very concrete step for the government and the country to actually invest in this, in building the infra, and then incentivizing people into switching to these cars. And going forward with that, I would like to see personally all commercial transport go into being electrical. So meaning public transport, taxis, logistics, so all sorts of everything basically commercial. And these things would actually result in a good and big impact in this field. Moreover, Finland is a country that could have a lot of potential in clean tech. So we would like to see more governmental investments in R&D efforts by companies that are building the future and building products or services that are solving this challenge. And it's not only about Finland, it's about the world. So instead of having the best and the brightest minds in Finland working on mobile games, I think it would be cool if people would be incentivized in working towards these sort of solutions that would actually build into big companies and export products for Finland as well. So climate change, it's a threat, but it's also a possibility in many ways, depending on how you look at it. All the countries have more or less awoken to the challenge, so there's a lot to be done in this sense from that perspective as well. So on a bigger picture, I think climate should be one of the key drivers in our foreign policies as well. We can do all we want here in Finland, but to be realistic and intelligent about it, we must understand that it's a mutual problem with everybody who's living on this planet. So to actually drive change, we need to build some sort of an alliance, first and foremost in the EU, and agree on what needs to be done and how, and then have the power to actually negotiate with big countries or nations or continents with these issues and how to go forward.
Hello everybody, I'm sorry I'm late. This is a thing that politics do. Also, it's no excuse, I'm sorry. I've been listening to these comments. I came late, so I didn't hear everybody's comments, but we've been talking a lot about cars, right? Okay, so what we need to do, according to IPCC report, we need to be carbon neutral by 2030. We need to be carbon negative by 2050. This is not something you handle by switching a few cars. This is this is like the biggest reform our planet has ever seen. We're literally talking about the conditions on life on Earth. At the moment, as we speak, 98% of coral reefs near Australia's coast have been destroyed. 98% have been destroyed. If we do not stop the emissions if we do not stop the global warming at 2.5, then it will be 100%. What we need in Finland is a total change of energy. How we live, how we produce energy. We have to go totally to renewable energies. Well on by 2030, we need to be carbon neutral by then. That means we cannot burn fossil fuels. When we talk about banning cars, that does not mean that the government will come to your house and take your car. No, it just means that we're forcing the market to produce cars that produce less emissions. So this has been done all the time. When we talk about not banning stuff, well, you don't want to get rid of smoking in public areas. We cannot say, if you guys feel so, because smoking was something that everybody did in every place. No, we banned it cold-heartedly because it was killing the people around us, right? So it's the same thing with global warming. While we're living here in Finland, in the northern part of the world, we do not see the impact. We're not the first people to see. Actually, we're one of the last people to see. It is true, it's a global change. But as we speak, the people that have caused the less emissions in the world's history are paying the biggest price. We have about the half population of Finland of climate refugees. And that amount is rapidly growing day by day. It's not something that we can wait until 2030, until Sweden has done something with electrical cars. By then, it's already late. Okay, so the top scientists of this country has looked about every single climate policy plan of every single party, and there's only two parties that do policies that are radical enough, and it's the Left Alliance and it's the Greens. There's no other at the moment because people are too focused on speaking on little things like cars when this is the biggest change about the whole way we live on this planet. Not just for humans, but the whole ecosystem. That's about that.
So Alexander, you wanted to add something before we...
Yeah, just some comment about the EU regulation. They already exist, yeah? There is a EU 30 that says that from 2005 up to 2030, yeah, we have to reduce their emissions by 40%. Yeah, and then there is clear regulations about amount of emissions that each car can produce. It's for private cars, it's 95 grams per kilometer, which basically means about 4.5 liters per 100 kilometers. And the car industry is quite close to that. Yeah, so we can maybe talk about to put more taxes or to ban cars with bigger motors. Yeah, in this case, yeah, because we have the regulations. Yeah. Then about comment about wait 2030. It was 2023 when we choose the next actual government after this one.
Let's we go to, if you have a quick question, comment on that, because we still have other, okay. Yeah, but Aya, you have something?
And when we talk about the EU papers that have been made, they're basic protocols. There's basically papers that have been done for the last 4 decades. Really, this has been going on for 4 decades. People have come together, drawn up a paper, and be like, okay, this is what we need to do, but it's not binding. Nobody is legally held accountable if nothing happens. But do you know how many people are held accountable for like livelihood? Every single part of these factors if we do not do anything. So what we did need to do, from June or July, I don't remember, Finland will be holding the presidency of EU. And that is when we need to do something binding, legally binding, meaning that if you do not go on with these protocols, if you just sign up your name, that does not bind you to go forward, that you will get something. But something. It's going to cost hell of a lot to not do anything.
Okay, thanks. Yes.
Super short comment. Finland will get the presidency of the EU, but Finland as a president cannot actually do that. As a president country, it means that your role will be guiding the work, and it means that this decision that you want, it will be made when the new commission is formed. That is the place where the decision is made. And we know that Finland has already said that our main goal in doing our presidency will be stopping global warming. That's only words. What we need is for the new European Commission to put that on their agenda. That is where the place is.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So quickly.
Yeah, just very quick. Thank you. By the way, it's nice to meet you, and I love your energy, and I hope you continue. I hope you continue. I'm very happy in the future to see people like you doing politics in this country, and I'm very proud of you. Just a little bit reminder that it's very important that we do everything we can at the moment, but doing radical changes in a very short time will also collapse a lot of other things. So we need to make sure that where we differ from maybe from some of the parties is that we are going to tackle this problem. We want to tackle this problem. The wanting and the ideas of how to do exist in most of the political parties. The only thing that we differ is how do we make sure that we don't put all these companies out of work, where they are also giving people to go to work and employing. There's employment, there's a lot of other things also, including this whole issue. It's not only about one thing. It's a very complex thing. It's not only one thing or two things. So in that way, the blame game that I was talking about earlier, that is the problem that we have, and that's where we differ. And I think that we need to be realistic about how we handle global warming. And that's why more discussions is needed and less finger pointing.
Thank you so much. This is a very interesting topic, and I know it ties also to the taxations about that. So we'll delve into that. But if we move to our next segment, which is immigration. According to statistics, immigration to Finland has increased as of 2018, with foreign backgrounds making up 7%. Of the population in Finland. So each of you, and I ask you that we stick to the 2 minutes, max 3 minutes. If you could tell us what are your party's position, and secondly, your view on matters concerning migratory policies like asylum policy, family reunification, work-based immigration. So, we've had a lot of articles and stories about how people have been deported and applications. So if we start with you, Fatin.
I started last book.
Yeah, if you want, whoever. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I have worked with this issue from like the last 14 years, and whenever immigrants and immigration comes up, what is the first thing that comes to mind? Anyone? Somalis? What else?
Racism.
What else? Refugees.
Work, studies.
Actually, those comes like back there. They don't come. Sorry, the Greens. By the way, the number one reason for immigrants coming to Finland is for family and love number 2 is for studies and work, and then refugees come 3 or number 4. But we talk about refugees a lot. We talk a lot about Iraqis. We talk a lot about rape and discrimination. We don't talk about the 90% of Indian communities working in this country, which is even much better than the Finnish. We look at the percentage of it. We don't talk about the Filipinos who are working over 80% in this country. We don't talk about the guys coming from all around the world to do the coding work of so many different levels. We don't talk about the companies like Fatser that almost, did put this country into the face of the world. We don't talk about that. We talk about a lot of negative issues. And I think, as a person who also worked for the media myself, I worked in Yle for 3.5 years, good news is no news. And people don't want to talk about that and all the good things that immigrants are doing. If I tell you right now that this is last night, Saturday, if the immigrant drivers in this city, of the taxis or the buses, or the cleaners, if they will all go to lakko, strike, this city will really feel that. So without immigrants, this city cannot move forward. So what needs to happen very quickly is that recognition, respect, and feeling that we are part of this society. What I have been fighting for all these 14 or plus 20 years in this country was, I feel like I'm part of this country. My heart belongs to this country, but then I'm still called a foreigner. Kids are born here and they're still there. So what needs to happen is attitude change through the Finns, and that's where we move forward.